Hi, this is Carol Van Ornum from the Civil War Roundtable Congress, and today we're interviewing Ken Patton of the Cumberland Mountain Civil War Roundtable. Welcome, Ken, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Great. The Civil War Roundtable Congress created an initiative to interview roundtable leaders for the purpose of sharing their roundtable successes and challenges with the roundtable community. We also hope that they will offer ideas and perspectives which will help others grow. So Ken, tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, your schools, your career, and about your interest in the Civil War.
Well, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, which means exposure to the bluffs on the Mississippi River and to the Shiloh battlefield and a few other areas. I went to Rhodes College in Memphis and then got my MBA from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. Much of my career was spent in banking or what's called business valuation. I worked with owners of closely held companies to value their businesses. My interest in the Civil War, mostly that as a child. Then when education came along, life diverted to other subjects such as family and career. And I really didn't get re-involved in Civil War activities until I moved to Fairfield Glade here in Crossville, Tennessee about 10 years ago.
And what was your degree in, your MBA?
My MBA was in finance. My undergraduate degree was in economics.
Okay. So how long have you been a leader of your roundtable?
Since very early in 2019.
And at that time, how many members did you have?
We had about 50, I think, 50 or 60. To give you a little more color, our roundtable was founded in September of 2017, just barely 18 months before that. The individual who founded the roundtable for personal reasons decided to move away, and the people on the board decided they needed a new leader. I'm not even sure I was a member of the roundtable at that time, but somehow they asked me to do it, and I decided to do it.
They saw you coming.
They saw me coming.
And what was your assessment of the roundtable when you took over?
Well, I thought we were in very good shape. They had done a lot of the right things. You had to remember that the president and the program chairman were both veterans of very successful roundtables in other areas. Another person had been very involved in the Lincoln Forum organization. The other people were knowledgeable about history. So we had a lot of history buffs, but we had a lot of organizational oomph, so to speak. So they had incorporated the roundtable under Tennessee law. They had created bylaws, articles of incorporations. They had created a structure. People understood what their roles were. They had done one very significant thing in that they had created the alliances with the Knoxville and Tri-Cities roundtables to help with programming. So if you look at all of that, a great deal had been accomplished in just 18 months.
I'll say.
Yes.
What did you do initially to improve your roundtable or make a difference?
Well, I had two goals. One was to be certain that I would be welcomed in this role. I was fundamentally an outsider. I was a member of a roundtable over in Cookeville, Tennessee. It's about 30 miles from here and had been doing that for 3 or 4 years. I only knew one of all the officers. I only knew one of them well, and several of them I never even actually met. So I wanted to be certain that they were agreeable to my coming on board. So I made everybody promise that they didn't want the job. It wasn't too hard to get to extract that promise, but I did want them to have it. Then the next thing was, in the short run, it wasn't to break anything. I couldn't see any reason to make major changes. And the challenges we faced at that moment related more to stability in our venue and stuff like that.
What do you think was your most shining or valuable moment or accomplishment as president?
Since I started, I would probably put 2 or 3 things in there. One was we survived COVID pretty well. It was a setback, but not at all fatal. We were able to move through COVID pretty well.
How did you do that?
Well, it's a really interesting question. We had just moved to a new venue. We were blessed with the fact that Tennessee was not very aggressive in requiring people to shut down. So we took the period of spring of 2020. We took that time off. Then we had another shutdown in early 21, but we were if we wanted to meet, we could meet. My assessment of COVID sort of took way in three places. One was, what could we do to survive that? What were our demographics like? What were our resources, intellectual and money? So what could we do if we wanted to do anything differently? I know a lot of people at that point wanted to use technology, videos, reaching out, off sites. We decided not to do that. Just didn't seem very practical to us. The other thing we did was, well, what are other roundtables doing? Well, we did see other roundtables following that path. Didn't excite me very much. I thought we have to keep people together. We have to keep fannies in the seats if we're going to have money. The third thing I did was, we're not the only small organization faced with this situation. Who out there is strategically like us? And I looked around, and the one that popped up very consistently was small churches. What are they doing? How are they doing outreach? How are they keeping their flocks together, so to speak? And it was a very human to human level, as opposed to trying to do it with some type of automation or some type of visual and that sort of thing. So we very much stayed the course. We got back to meeting as quickly as we could. We used space seating. We tried to be smart about it as best we could. Eliminated a lot of things that you could touch, for example, like the badges and that sort of thing. But it worked. We never really had a problem with COVID, except with the times when the government pretty much, and our venue as a church as well, we were watching very carefully what they were doing, and they seemed to be following the plan of most small churches anyway, which made it very palatable for us to continue to meet and get back together.
Great. And then did you have any other moments or accomplishments that you want to
Well, I think so. One of the things that the first group did, they wrote a mission statement. The mission statement is pretty standard. We're here to promote interest in the Civil War, education about the Civil War. And you can use that as your elevator speech, and you can already tell I don't do a very good job of that. But I hit upon the idea that we had to be different in some way. And so it occurred to me that the thought is, well, how are you doing this? Or what are you doing? And the subtitle to our mission statement, which is absolutely not written down, but is, we're going to be the highest quality adult education opportunity in the Upper Cumberland, which is a 7-county region. We want people, and I talk about that more than I do the Civil War Roundtable, that this is someplace you can go and have really an intellectual experience as typically a retired adult or a middle-aged adult that you can't get anywhere else, and you can get it so easily here. So that, I think, has been a very successful way to talk about the Roundtable, and we have absolutely delivered on the quality of programming. Other things that we're very proud of, we have upped our game greatly in the last 3 years on our field trips. We were doing day trips, half-day trips. We could get to Nashville, or we could do simple things. We just finished a 3-day, 2-night trip to Chattanooga to Chickamauga. These things that I think are great, and people do seem to enjoy them. The other achievement is the fact that we're still here, in a sense that we've turned over 100% of the leadership that I had when I arrived. Now, there was no bad reason in there except for the one who died, but nevertheless, circumstances required us to replace everybody, and we have done that successfully, and we're going to have to do it again in the coming years. But I think that has been an achievement, and that's a challenge for everybody. But that's one I'm pretty proud of as well.
Two things I want to follow up on. Tell me a little bit more about your field trips, just as, how often do you go, and what kind of transportation do you use, and do you collaborate with other roundtables?
In recent years, we have done one big trip, talking about some other things, but let's really focus on your question. For the last 3 years, we have gone to Shiloh Battlefield, 3 days, 2 nights. This most recent one was to Chickamauga. The circumstance there has been to make sure we have a top-notch guide, not the local park ranger per se. We've had Kurt Fields as Ulysses S. Grant do Shiloh for us. And that's quite a different field trip than if you go down there and get in your car and ride around, that sort of thing. way we have done it is individual cars. We have looked carefully at the idea of buses, and we cannot get much enthusiasm for that. So, and then if we're going for 3 days, it'll typically be 1 day at the battlefield, and then we'll surround it with other smaller museums and things like that to keep people busy, and then typically one nice dinner. We're trying to think about more field trips. That's kind of on our agenda. We don't know how much more aggressive we want to be, but it's a big question for us. We seem to talk about it every time we get together.
Well, it sounds like fun.
It is. They are fun. They are fun, particularly if you do them really right.
Yeah.
And you have a really good guide. You can make it a highlight experience that people will remember.
And when you talked about the board members and that you've had good luck with being able to fill all the spaces, how do you recruit them?
Well, recruiting people to our leadership team is the biggest challenge I have faced. I don't know that it's easy anywhere. I wish that that problem could be solved, bottled, and sold. Getting people involved is just a major issue. For the most part, it is just personal one-on-one. You see somebody you think might be interested in something, or they surface for some reason. Maybe they reach out to you and ask you about something, or say, "Why would you like to get involved?" And they say, "Well, I don't." Usually the answer is, "Well, I don't know. Check with me later." But you keep working with it, and then you find out that they have some interesting background, interesting experience with it, and then they just sort of latch on to you. But then you try to work really hard to finding something specific for them to do, not just be part of some general global kind of thing, but dig in a little bit deeper and attach yourself to the organization.
And how long have you been president?
February, let's see, I guess January of 2019.
Do you have anything in your bylaws that talk about limits?
No, but that is a great idea.
Catch it now, before it's
Well,
too.
we do have term limits. We have to be reelected every, 3 years, I guess. So I've been elected a couple times. But there is no limitation to how many times you can be elected. There probably should be, but I'm very conscious of this. I'm beginning to make a little noise myself that maybe something needs to change with my situation, but circumstances have created the turnover. But I don't think it's a good thing for someone to have a job or be on the board for a long, long time. We do sort of have gray areas. We have 4 directors. That's the state of Tennessee legally mandates 3. We have 4. Maybe we'd like to have 5. But we have a leadership group that's 3 times that big. These are people who do specific tasks. I'm very much a believer in collaborative leadership, a believer in collaborative decision making. So if something is going on out there, I'll lob the idea out and see what reaction I get. If I don't get much reaction, I probably won't do it again. So we have to build some consensus to actually do something.
And everyone on your board has a job to do?
Yes.
The assignment?
One is our program chair. Of course, I do what I do. Then we have another person who's really much younger than we are, who's the former president of a roundtable in another state, and he takes care of I'll call it technology, all the underlying information systems that we have. He stands in for me if I'm not in a meeting, that sort of thing.
Besides recruiting for your leadership team, are there any other challenges that your organization faces?
Well, you have to start with the premise that a roundtable is very fragile. We're a small social organization, so it's very fragile. And we don't know exactly when, where, and how that threat is going to come to us. So you can never assume that somehow we're here where we have this immutable existence. We don't. The things that we have to watch, this is very specific to us, is our venue. We have a great venue in a church, but we don't have a good alternative to that. And if something were to happen there, that would pose a major threat to us, so we had to figure out how to settle that down. The other threat that I think is always out there, the other thing I think about constantly is money. how do we fund this organization? How do we fund it in a way that makes it grow? And I think that's probably true of every roundtable. It's probably true of almost every nonprofit organization or something like us that's out there. And those funding challenges are changing right before our very eyes. So that's something I spend a lot of time on.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Your funding challenges?
Well, I go back to my philosophy as what are our challenges? What are other roundtables challenges? And then if I look strategically around the country, is there something else out there that is sort of like us that's having problems? And as 5 years ago, I came to the conclusion it was small churches. The conclusion I came to with funding about a year and a half ago is it's live theater. People who produce plays, musicals, dramas. If you sit down and talk to a theater manager, the executive director of a theater, you will think you're talking to yourself, literally in the mirror. And they will look at you like, we're almost the same thing, aren't we? Right, because historically we relied on dues. They relied on season ticket sales. They rely on ticket sales to events. We rely on ticket sales. They sell sponsorships. They have fund drives. They do all of these things. But something terrible has happened to live theater in the United States. 50% of them are in danger of going out of business. People aren't even realizing this. I said, well, if that 50% could apply to us. And I have a great relationship with the guy that runs professional theater here in Crossville. And we talk about this. What are you doing? How are you trying to do it? And if you give me a minute, I'll take that one step forward in that when you have a dues-based model and you do programming, like 9 or 10 or 12 programs a year in a roundtable or in a theater, a season ticket model, and you get a lot of freedom to decide who's the speaker going to be, where are they going to come from, what are they going to talk about, who are they? And you announce it in advance of the season or pretty close to it. People have already paid their money, so they come and enjoy it, whether they like it or not, every single time. But when the dues model starts to break down on us and season ticket models break down, everybody starts to self-curate. Do I want to go to that meeting? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. And if they don't come, then there's a problem there. And all of a sudden attendance lags within the roundtable. And then the leadership of the roundtable says, well, what do we do to get them to come? Let's get more popular programs. Let's leave out certain things that maybe we think were interesting. And the theater manager's not doing dramas anymore or new theaters. He's doing musicals. And within that category, he has to get bigger and better musicals. What does that mean? That means everything costs a lot more. We'll just walk into our room and say, well, what's going on over here? Well, we have to bring in speakers from further away. We got to go to stars and semi-stars. We have to do a lot of stuff. Well, what about the people you used to bring who just written the new book? Well, nobody knows about that book. We can't use them. That thought process is starting to kick in a little bit. And so the traditional funding is weaker. The traditional type of program that we want to present is changing very fast. The pressure on the speakers to measure up in some new and different way is going to be rising fast. And all this just presents challenging of how do you put your program together, and then come back to how do you fund it? And so we're trying to figure that out ourselves. And we've never been big with sponsorships or fundraisers, or not fundraisers, but just capital campaign. But we're dabbling and looking at every single thing we can right now.
Sounds like you've got it under control as far as looking ahead.
Well, I understand the tigers are out there, yes.
So where do you see your roundtable in the next 5 years?
Well, this specific next 5 years, I'd like to see membership grow from say 180 to 250. I think it's probably a sort of a natural limitation to us. I would like to see the right mix of programming. Part of it will be more entertaining than it has in the past. I would like to see something that interests people. I want the quality to stay there. We will have to turn over about at least half of our leadership group. We're bringing some younger people in. Young is a relative term, of course, to a roundtable, but they're getting here, and we've got to get some traction for them, but that will have to happen. I would like to see us, do some more elaborate programming, which is my way of saying we've never done a program that had more than one participant, or we've done some things with several living historians, but I look and see roundtables around the country. They're doing all-day events. Some are doing more than that. Probably I want to sit down and ask them what really goes on to some of that, to understand better where they get their speakers, how much financial risk do they take, how do they promote them. I don't think we know how to promote, like, for example, an all-day event. I have any idea. But I don't want to do too much OJT on that subject. So in 5 years, we would be at a place we're doing maybe one event a year like that. We'll still have our living historian events. We'll have the same quality we've got now. It will be somewhat bigger. And I think with leadership looking to the future, and I think if we do all that, then things will be good.
Is there someone in your sphere that's been a mentor or an inspiration to you? And if so, what way?
Well, my friend Mark Papenroth, who invited me to go to the Cookville Roundtable some years ago, I think it would qualify at least maybe to one of those words. And for about 3 years, we made it a habit of writing over every month to what they were doing in Cookville, and we saw the good, bad, and the indifferent, I think. But Mark is also president of the Military Memorial Museum here in town, which is potential, I think, to be really, really nice. They're presently closed while their building is being renovated, but that will reopen this year sometime. And we're talking about doing some joint programming. We're talking about a variety of things. He's been pretty deep into the historical community for a long, long time. So he's always a good one to bounce ideas off of.
Do you think there's an opportunity to share space at the military museum? Do they have?
There is not. They are in a historical building, and their plan will be to pretty much fill it up. And they do not have a meeting space that would accommodate us anyway.
You talked about the collaboration with Knoxville, and I'm sorry, I forgot the other one.
It's called Tri-Cities. They're up in Kingsport, Tennessee.
That's right. Do you consider those relationships or collaborations to be a sister roundtable? What things do you do together?
Well, it would certainly be, they're close collaborators with us on programming. If we do 9 programs a year, 5 or 6 of those will be done in concert with them. So that gives us sitting up here on top of a mountain, so to speak, in an obscure place, a tremendous ability to reach into the Eastern United States, because particularly the ones in Tri-Cities, they're at Virginia. I mean, they're in the Carolinas. They're all close to these people and so forth. So they're able to reach out. But where we are on the western side of this 3 group is that we can go to the west. We can go to Memphis. We can go all the way and there's a great deal of Civil War activity from Nashville all the way to Memphis and into North Mississippi. So we can get speakers. Sometimes we share those, sometimes we do not. But in my mind, that is an essential partnership. We have to have something like that. If not with them, then somebody else. We have not tried to do anything else with them. And maybe that's shame on us there. I've gone down one of their field trips, very enjoyable. We've attended some of their meetings, just a fun night out. And then Knoxville is a very different type of meeting than we have. So we're working hard with the people who are involved in programming and having close relationships. And I think there's a lot more to be accomplished, particularly if we want to do an elaborate field trip. Probably will need more potential participants than what we can do. Or maybe we can do a multi-day program, because they're only 60 miles away. So there are some opportunities there that really do need to be explored.
You said 16 miles?
60 miles. 60 miles.
Okay.
60 miles away, yes.
And just to clarify, when you talk about the speaker sharing, do you hire one speaker and that person goes to all 3 roundtables, or?
That's how it's done. Typically, Kingsport meets on Monday, Knoxville on Tuesday, and we meet on Wednesday. Now we've had, because of Easter and some other issues in the church, we had to swap with Kingsport, and they took our Wednesday slot and we took the Monday slot. But still, the idea is the speaker comes in, we'll start and do 3 in a row.
Okay.
Most of the time they do the same program, but some of the speakers have so many topics they speak on, they will say, okay, pick a different topic.
Yeah.
And we get some input into that, and we get a lot of input into the planning. We have responsibility for identifying speakers just like they do. So everybody's out looking for speakers and looking for ideas.
And my final question officially is, have you considered doing the Congress's sustainability challenge?
We have done it informally.
Okay, good.
I look at every module that you can send out, and we have gone through every bit of that. And I think there's a lot of good information. That's what makes the Congress is a really good partner in that respect, in many respects actually. But we have gone through the sustainability challenge. We have talked about it among ourselves. Do I sit down and try to write it all down? The answer is no, not yet. But yes, you're having an intellectual effect.
Great, that's good to hear. Thank you.
It is good.
So what else do you want to tell us about your roundtable or anything about it?
Well, you have mentioned partners, and I want to give you an anecdotal piece to that. I went to the Congress meeting in 2019 in St. Louis, so I was relatively brand new. The speaker there talked about the importance of partners, talked about the importance of the library, their big public library. It's a much larger metropolitan area. But I came away with that thinking, okay, I'll go to our public library here, and it's actually very nice, and they do have programming, and we provided speakers on several occasions, but they don't have the capacity to be a partner which really lifts us up or changes us meaningfully. But the point of wasn't that I had to be a partner with our public library. The point was we got to have partners, and we already had the big ones with the 2 roundtables, and to reassess that, not to be thinking I could walk in here and somehow change that. That would be a really bad idea. But we need partners. So where are our partners? Well, our venue partner is very important to us. Our local newspaper is tremendously important. We get incredible coverage. Now, I suspect many other roundtables can't get their name mentioned in the local paper. We sometimes get half a page, pictures and everything for our meetings. And I think it's linked to 2 or 3 things. One is they know we have a super high quality product, and they're limited in their options to have something to promote that people will read. And they know people read their articles about us. So, and we buy ads and we do a few other things, but that one is really big. We have a local theater, Palace Theater, one of these 1930s built in every town. Well, it's been redone, and so we'll use them once or twice a year, and they're really good to work with because they want to be. Like I mentioned, the Congress, the roundtables, it takes a lot of partners, people that you can rely on. For example, how's the Palace is a venue? Yes, we go down there, but we've been talking about the ideas we've been talking about on this broadcast. I spent about 45 minutes talking to the woman that runs it. Well, what if we tried to do this? What should we be thinking about? Well, I get the lay of the land from her. I don't have to think about a lot of the issues that are related to producing a program. They produce programs. So there are these resources out there that if you get to know them, I think they will talk to you. And they can make your life a lot easier, particularly in foreclosing mistakes or something like that. So that's a big takeaway. Get partners, get them everywhere, and work with them.
You've done a lot of work on that. I'm really impressed.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to share with us?
Let me see if I can think of anything. We have covered a lot of ground. I think we've done well this morning.
I do too. Well, thank you, Ken, so much for joining us. It was just a pleasure talking with you.
It's a pleasure talking to you, and maybe we'll meet personally here at one of these meetings someday.
You should.
Thank you very much.